So after Gyug's presentation, I don't know there's anything that could match the humor that you brought in. Um, and also your take into the, looking at India has been so fresh. Um, I'll try matching it, and this is where I change a bit here. I'm going to present what I learned in these times of working with international companies. I started human resources as an executive doing calls for job opportunities. So I was the one who would hound employees to go look for jobs, to appear for interviews. Slowly, I moved into working with companies, working with businesses and business heads. And that's when I realized there's a lot that we've learned, which is very different than what I got educated in. I did my education in human resources 4 years after doing my work. This was through XLRI. And, and it's strange. When I started working as a consultant with a company, and they asked me a question. We were at a rock bottom, low motivation in the team. Increments were not happening that year. It's the year of recession, sorry. We had one-digit increments to a country which was used to double-digit increments. We didn't want to work together. We found problems with other teams. And my manager asked me, you're human resource. You know people. Solve this problem. And I looked back and I said, well, yeah, I work in human resources. I'm a human too. You gave me 1% increment. And you want me to solve your problem? So that's when I realized that what you learn and what reality is, concepts and reality are very, very different. When I was asked to talk about what do you do to develop sales team, I didn't have much to say, but these are the three things you do. What you hire decides how motivated or how developed your teams are. What you pay them gives you how motivated your team is, and how you review them. These are the only three actions we've got to talk. And I worked with a company, and here is where I'm going to use a lot of examples, so any resemblance is absolutely coincidental. I worked with a company who was struggling to get the sales head in place for a continuous period. So when I would go back and ask, okay, so what is that you want? He says, every time it's a budget. We don't have the budget to hire the best talent. And in my learning of years, I've known there's a talent at every budget point. You just need to know what you're looking for. So I said, okay, so last sales head stayed how long? They said about 8.5, 9 months. I said, okay, so what is the cost of hire? He said, we paid 8 months of salary. There was a severance pay we had to pay. There was also the loss of managerial time and so on and so forth. But that's really not the cost of the real hire. What about the teams that he impacted? What about the members he impacted? What happened on that cost? What is your cost of demotivation? What is your cost of hiring your another recruitment channel to go through the entire pain of 6 months of the process of hiring? So your cost of hire is really expensive. And it is too expensive to make a poor decision of hiring a wrong guy. So I went back and looked. We spoke to a lot of people. I wish I could get technology to play with me to do a show of hands to see what do you hire when you're looking for a salesperson. So I picked up skills from JDs. I had worked for so many years, picked up skills and asked my companies and clients to go back and list what was important. They came back with things in no real importance. It's random. Selling skills. I still don't know what it means, but yeah, selling skills, business acumen, industry and market understanding. They should be technically savvy. There has to be an ambition, and there should be a cultural fit. These are the top things people look for when they hire for the team. I don't know what a cultural fit is. Like you said, stay in India. Don't come with a hand baggage. Stay here. Know the culture. And there is a difference. I just moved to Karnataka, and I'm not a Malayali. But there is no Malayali in Kannada. They are Kannadis. So there's a huge difference of culture. And here, when I go back and say, you want me as a consultant to do your cultural fit? I can't. I can tell you whether this guy is going to be a great sales guy, but I cannot tell you if he's a cultural fit for you, because culture is many, many layers together. So I went back, looked at the research, these topics came up, and I went back and looked into psychology. What is psychology talking about sales? are they people who are really developing tools that help you assess sales? Yes, there are many. There are many off-the-shelf products that you can purchase to tell you if this person is sales. But if I was to look back and if I was to ask you and maybe take a minute for you to go back into your memory and say, who was the best sales guy? There were certain traits that helped, and each one of you is bringing that traits to the table, that you have a very strong need to connect. And this connect is not coming from your customer, your supplier, your potential, but the need to be out there socially bold, to connect to the outside world, to invest your daily time to check what's happening outside your industry is a sales trait. Your resilience, how soon do you get back from a setback? It is the time you take to bounce back is a trait. And these things don't get assessed in an interview. Nobody assesses resilience. Nobody assesses persistence. And persistence is not just follow-ups. It's about that need to make a negotiation is persistence. How do you negotiate relentlessly on a topic? And this takes relationship, it takes patience. But who is assessing that in the interviews? I sit through panels of interviews where they ask, oh, great resume. And by the way, resume is done through AI. That's the newest technology in human resources. If I want to go for a job, I will look through the JD, pick up the keywords, and put it in my resume because the AI, artificial intelligence that throws up the resume, will throw me up. But rarely does it get assessed in a panel. I get questions asked, how many times should I meet the candidate? And I don't have an answer. As many times maybe, till the time you know he's persistent. But the key word is that, yes, meet the people more than just once, and not just you. Have other parts of your organizations to meet the candidate as well. Do have a lunch or a meal date with the candidate is my highly recommended thing. That's where you really see the person, you meet the person, you know if your ideologies match. People hire for motivation. They say leadership position, somebody who's done a regional sales head is a great NSM. Yes, they are, indeed. They have learned through the experiences, yes, they are. But what you need when you are hiring, when a national sales manager hires for his team, what does he need? He doesn't need another NSM, does he? What does he hire? He needs leadership in his. So there is a trait which is called motivational leadership. And I'll be very conscious of using the word leadership because it's not the position. It is the act of creating energy in the team that you work. And that has got nothing to do with the position you hire. So when you're hiring for your team, you need a mini replicas of yourself. And these are the traits we could look at. Achievement orientation. A standard myth and a dichotomy that I always get with is a sales guy is target oriented. Of course he is, yes. Who isn't? Because targets drive incentives and money drives motivation, and then the theory goes on. But achievement orientation has got nothing to do with target setting. It's got to do with your competitiveness. And that competitiveness decides how successful you will become in the roles that you were to take. And this is not really that for sales per se, but any roles. So achievement orientation is more from success and competition based. But rarely do interviews happen like these. I once I was doing a discussion and they were hiring, and they had a female candidate come in. And so the first impression of the panel goes, okay, so she wants to do sales. I said, yeah, maybe she does. So they asked, okay, are you married? They said, yeah, I just got married 2 years back. Okay, so when are you planning family? I said, ooh. Oh, that's interesting. So what has family got to do with sales? And he says, no, but she will plan family. I said, yes, anybody who marries does plan a family. So, but I stopped and I said, okay, what are you assessing here? What do you want to know? What if she has a child? What do you want to know? Would she carry on? Is she career-oriented? Would she carry on the job? Will she manage the stress of a sales field job? I said, okay, so that's the wrong question to ask. What you need to know is what is her motivation and drivers for her career. And how do you support? And that's where I look around, diversity is an issue with the sales teams. But why? Question that I'll still grapple with, and all the research that I've done, I still haven't found an answer. But sometimes we ask the wrong question, but with the right intention. My question is not, or I'm not trying to create a situation by saying that we don't know assessments, we don't know interviews. Here is where I'm trying to bring a spin to it. It is not about you not knowing your assessments or your interviews or how to assess people, but you have to develop a team. You need the right stars on your team. And this is where working with international subsidiaries, I found two distinct things that happen. When I'm hiring for a sales head in India, the requisitions are much different, and the requisitions go anything from, let's look at somebody who understands the market, who knows the distribution network, who knows how this product will be sold in India. In the interviews, the question asked is, why don't you tell me about your market? What is your assessment of the market? And I sit back and sometimes wonder, isn't that an intellectual conversation to do? I'm only going to get a desirable answers on this question. I've never met in the last 6 years of working with international companies where a business case study is used as an assessment tool, where I give you a business case problem and ask you to solve it. But that is what you need leaders to do. India is not an easy market. I cannot expect you sitting with bag and baggage in India. You need to have somebody who cracks this market for you. But how would a past experience prove a future performance? But that simulation has never happened at a senior level. Then the other side of the conversation that comes in is when the team's already established and you're expanding to hire the next line. I ask, what do you look for? Anybody who can do what I'm doing. I said, oh, that's brilliant. But when they hire somebody who is technically sound, strategically weak. I said, okay, but this is not what you went out for. And that's where I come back. If you know exactly what you want to hire, you will never make a wrong decision. And there's always a talent sitting on a price point. That brings me to the next thing, pay. So many consultants that I've worked with, they come back and say, if the company had better budget, I would have given him a great talent. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Definitely by giving a budget, which means strawberries, you'll still end up with monkeys. How great is that? And we sit and we look at it, what are the trends happening? And these are the trends that happen. If I'm jumping from a very established company, I should expect a 40% increase. If I come from not so established companies, but I'm changing a job for a startup, I should get 20%. And if I'm just a junior being hired, please give me a job, is the negotiation tables. And this is strange, because what I need for somebody in an SME with a startup is a different caliber altogether. I have worked with a company where the person was hired from a very large established, and since the names have been taken, Bosch, came in, established the India setup, and bombed. And I wondered what happened. This person had the caliber, had the credibility, the talent. What happened? What we don't realize is Bosch has an enterprise working for the person. There is an enterprise that runs behind the person who does that sales. But a startup is a different ballgame. A startup is a person who will be one day helping somebody package your product, looking through the invoices, making sure my accounts receivable are there, and then talking to a principal at the same time, and also to a prospective clients. So what you need as a personality trait in a startup is very different. You need somebody who's a risk taker. And each one of you who started the journey with a startup would know the thrill of being with a startup. You are risk takers, you don't have directions, you are usually somebody who's low on need for supervision. You don't like to be told what needs to be done. And they are the people who enjoy startups. But if you're working in a very structured organization, you need a structure, you need guidelines, you need protocols, are not usually going to be successful. If you're not risk takers, and that's the time when pay money, which is cash, is the king, when those discussions come in, is when you really know the person's not a risk taker. Startups will give you great base, but will not give you a sustainable salary, if not results proven. And that is a big risk from coming from an established organization. There are trends that say, let's give salespeople incentives. So more incentives you give, the better the performance. My question is, how better is the performance? Is there a result that has shown you this? I increased my variable by 20%. My results increased by 20%. So maybe this is not what's working. Variable pay is not working, and those are the trends that have moved in. A lot of people, a lot of sales profiles have moved away from annual bonuses, have moved away from performance-linked salaries to a level that quota-driven. There are a lot of changes happening in the compensation world. And it's a very sweet spot. I have no liberty to say here what we are doing is right and wrong because it's working. But it's a sweet spot. How much to pay to get how much is a question. And the thumb rule really goes, no? You pay somebody X and you expect 15 times of that salary as a turnover. So really, where is the negotiation? I'm negotiating my targets upwards, I guess. But those aspects needs to be looked at. What I can tell you is pay has never made people do sales. And I can be shot in the foot by saying that. Money has never made people do sales. Something else has made people do sales. And something else has made people develop very successful teams as well. There's a very large global research company that does research on why people are productive. Why do people perform better? And they came up with 2 or 3 things. It's the leaders they work with. People working with great leaders will always produce great results. And let's look back history and pick up any company. Let's pick up an Indian company, Tata. True. You have Ratan Tata, completely visionary, changed the way we looked at corporates. It's a name we've known when we were growing, ambitious companies. Any company with great leaders will build great teams. So now the question comes, so what do we do? 2 things. If you are already in the leadership position, enhance yourself. There's no dearth to learning available. I have seen a lot of international companies who sent their general management programs. They've started developing this further. But if you're setting up a team, please hire for potential. And that's also a dichotomy. What do you hire for? Do you hire for technical knowledge or potential? I'll say depends what you need. If you're a startup, please hire technical knowledge. You need to be running off the ground before you start exhibiting leadership. But also create a support systems. And this is what you do. How do you enable? There was a quote that said, expect what you inspect. And this is a very quality and a manufacturing quote. I just transpose it a bit more to human resources, and I'd say, please only inspect what you have enabled. And example, I meet companies, they say, oh, I've delegated the complete authority to him. He has the complete authority. So my delegation is there. I know my team knows what they need to do. But the distinction is, have you delegated the task or the responsibility? And that's where it cracks. Because most often than not, it is delegation of a task and not a responsibility. But expectation is about an outcome. So you are inspecting to expect outcomes, but what you have enabled is only task delegation. That's where your structures, how do you create your structure? And I'm very conscious of talking about structures because then the only thing that pops up is hierarchies. Should we have hierarchies? No, I'm talking to an SME. For 20 people, how many hierarchies do you need? It is always going to be a flat organization. I'm talking about, can that flat organization give you opportunities to enable, support, guide your team to be more productive? Examples, have you reviewed your sales managers, your second in line? How have they been guided? How many times does your sales manager go to a sales visit and sit with the sales rep and understand why is it a loss opportunity? Or is it to show a face in the market to say, here I do my sales visits? There's a difference. And what is guidance? It's such a beautiful thing that we human resources professionals have learned in our education to pick big words. But what is guidance? So how many times does your salesperson sit down with a report and says, we lost this opportunity and there's a pattern of the lost opportunities? What is that I can help you with? Why do I feel in my experience this opportunity is not worth pursuing? Do those conversations happen, or are they just left to being reviewed and monitored? Each one of you has a sales review meetings that happen every month, every quarter, maybe weekly. But there is a difference between monitoring and reviewing. And sometimes it becomes so colloquial that we use one for the other. But monitoring is over a period of time. It is continuous activity. Review is a point in time. Your sales reviews are there, but you monitor your sales activities. And here is when I say enabling your sales team means your focus on monitoring as well. How do you monitor your sales activities? Have you looked, do you have a CRM tool that tells you how many times a customer needs to be followed up? And I don't want to complicate this matter. An Excel sheet is a CRM tool also. But is there something that tells you, are these activities effective? Is my inside sales more effective than my outbound sales? At some point in time, you need to shift that paradigm. You will need outbound sales for the growth. And you'll need inbound sales for your, or inside sales for your profitability. Where is the speed? When do you start monitoring? Now the shift needs to happen. How many times do you monitor your sales rep to say which activity is ineffective for the person? But what are you paying for? You're paying for turnover. So why monitor this? You're paying for a revenue. You're paying for the targets you set for the person. But to develop the team, there's a huge difference. And my 20 years, actually not even 20, is about that the devil is in details. And there is no harm in stopping by and saying, okay, let's monitor. Monitor for us reminds us of school when somebody used to monitor us for bad behavior. But if you were to sit down and say, okay, let's discuss which activity is more productive for you, how can I make you more productive, and get to that granular level. There is no way that a team which you have hired spends so much time on hiring, recruiting, assimilating in your culture, and then just letting it go just per reviews. In the same breath, I will also share examples where people have the indications much earlier that this team is not coming together, but nothing happens about it. And in my work with a lot of SMEs and especially international subsidiaries, the decision-making of consequence management is so delayed that the damage is not from the consequence management of letting the person go, but it is from the fact that so much time has gone in. But this is not so when it comes to your already India team setup. The decisions are faster, the turnaround is faster, the assessments is much faster. So what happens? Are we insensitive? And this is something I want you to each look at it, because you're leaders, you're leading a team. You're not the ones who are going into the sales, your team members are doing it. So the time has crossed, that 7-year mark has crossed when you were the one running to get sales. Now your team is going to get sales. And where is the transition in your table happening? Where is that you're looking back into your team and saying, is my team really doing what I had done when I started off? And for each one of you as a sales head here, your journey begins after every 5 years. So first 5 year finishes and the next 5 years look like the first 5 years again. Because by the time attrition has happened, demotivation has happened, your team members who you hired and groomed have moved out, and you're back in the 5-year space. So there is something not working in the system. And all it takes is in the details. I met a person who told me, you know, I hired a monkey, I trained him like a donkey, and I'm hoping he works like a stallion. I say, well, you're not the only one. But the problem is sometimes you hire a stallion, you make him work like a donkey and hope he acts like a monkey. So the, there's so much in human resources, I really don't know where to start with. But what, if I was to ask you what makes, who were the great people you worked with? Who are your experiences that you remember? I'm sure you didn't remember the title you were given. You're sure you don't remember the salary you were given. But what you will remember is the opportunity you were given, the experience you had while you were in that process. If you were to replicate that experience, you're developing a team. Rest is all paraphernalia, rest is all collateral. There will be teams who will come together, there will be teams who will fall apart. But a leadership is something that will decide how your team behaves or the culture that happens. And while there is patience in relationships, I also believe there's dispassionate relationship. You need to, at some point in time, start exhibiting in your team. When to let go of your top talent are the questions your next 5 years are going to tell you. When is your top talent becoming destructive for your team? But that's the next journey. It's not the topic of today. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Great people bring great teams together. Your tools, your HR consultants, your HR teams have all the tools to help you. But the intention is yours. And it all starts by doing just 3 simple things: hire right, pay them right, and work with them right. That's the only way to develop a team. So that's it. Thank you so much for having me here.